Hey guys, this is Anthony Tucker, BHS class of 2007, and I'm here with my favorite high school teacher, Miss Darla Tresner, College High class in 1976. Now, everybody knows you as Miss T, of course. Now, the spelling is still up in the air. Do we use MS or do we use MZ? For a while during my time, we were MZ in it, and we made it work. So, Miss T, so your time at College High, what was that rivalry like with Sooner High?
Oh, man, it was fun. It would really build up during the week. And though I have heard that it got kind of crazy towards the end, we never did that. I just know fun things that we used to do. And as a Wildcat, I can actually confess now, all these years later, that I put hot dogs on the car antennas of my friends from Sooner. And just little prank kinds of things. And it was just so much fun.
And both schools back then were like 2A, 3A.
Maybe 4.
Maybe 4. So
Maybe.
Both. And then we joined together and made 5A and eventually 6A.
It's incredible.
But it was almost like Madison and Central back when they both had separate teams. Now we're just one team for the most part.
Exactly.
But that sounds pretty cool.
Oh, it was.
It sounds like a good time. That now kids out there who are watching, I know mostly it's alumni that are tuning in, but that's before Live 360.
Oh, yeah.
If you told a friend you were going to meet him somewhere for dinner or whatever, you were going to be there.
Oh, of course. You betcha.
So you didn't have to have a text message or Snapchat. You just said, "Okay, I'm gonna meet Miss T. We're gonna meet up." So, can you tell me some of your favorite memories during your time at Col High?
Oh my goodness, it brings back so many faces all at once. But some of our homecomings were incredible. There was one when we had a 1950s theme, and everybody in the school dressed up in the 1950s. And we had a live band that played music, and one of our favorite teachers, Dan Simmons, who's no longer with us, he dressed up like a soda jerk, and Shan Gray drove into the gym on his motorcycle. I mean, it was so much fun.
That gives very original Bad News Bears vibes of the guy on the motorcycle. The name escapes me right now, but totally you're awesome. You're a bad dude. You're driving
exactly.
So we were kind of talking beforehand, but what was some of your favorite places to eat at while you were in high school?
Well, probably if you knew me, you know I worked at Pizza Inn for 5 years, high school and college. So, of course, I've got to give them a plug. But I loved Murphy's. I just kind of discovered that my senior year, and it is still such a treat. It really was. We had some other things around that time. I believe we had an Applegate's Landing. We had a Pizza Hut. And then we had the very first McDonald's in town, which was always, that was kind of fun and different too.
The toys. Were there still toys?
You betcha.
I'll tell you a quick story, though, and people out there will understand, the older alumni, is the glass mugs from the 90s. My oldest daughter and I were at the Tuesday House over there on the west side of town, and they had a bunch of the Flintstones. Back when John Goodman was in the Flintstones.
Yes.
I only got 2. There was 13. I knew I couldn't get away with 13 with my wife, so I just did 2. But So while you were at Col High, what were some of the organizations or activities or groups that you were a part of?
I was a part of the journalism department, of course. The College High Nautilus was my baby. And I was in a current events club. I was in American Field Service, which was the exchange students kinds of club. We had a John Baird Society. That was always a big hoot for everybody, and it was just fun to be active and involved. It really made a difference.
Yeah, clubs were definitely more important, and even during my time here with you as a student, I felt like, we were talking 4th Estate, we had video yearbook, and there were other things, not just sports,
right?
That we were proud to be a part of and proud to stand up when we were all together back when we could all fit in the auditorium.
Yes, true.
And it was just cool. It was like a little part of your identity, and everybody knew that about you.
That's right.
And you showed up in the yearbook. Shout out.
Yeah.
There was plenty of times, because I remember Miss T when she would start her day off at the mid-high over with us when we were freshmen and sophomores, and we had the original iMacs when Steve Jobs came back and saved the company, the color ones. And we're doing layout and everything, and we're just all just stressing how are we gonna make this work? I don't know. But that's awesome. So you have been teaching here for how long?
since the earth was cooling. Okay. Actually, this is 45 years of teaching for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I actually got to come back when it was still Col High.
So you got to teach at Col High, go through the transition as a teacher. What was that kind of like when everybody got brought together? Was everybody instantly just like, we're Bruins, we're on board? Or it took a little bit?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The very first pep assembly, nobody stood up, nobody cheered. Mm-hmm. They gave the teachers all a T-shirt that said, I heart, the big old heart, the Bruins. And we were supposed to go out and sing the new school song. And we went out and we stood and we acted like we were singing the song because nobody knew it except maybe, the music director. But it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
The first graduation was kind of sad.
Yeah.
But it took a while, but we got there.
We got there. And I like to bring this up, especially like with yourself, Miss T, is like, this is something we need to talk about from our past and how we came together. And so we know where we come from, because we haven't always been unified. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of kids don't read, well, the kids don't get Granger Metters emails, but I read them, the very in-depth ones. And it's like, there was, growing population on the east side of town. But it's cool that we don't forget that. I love what Wilma Mankiller said, where when you make a decision, you have to look 6 generations to your past and think about 6 generations to your future and how it's going to impact. So that's why I think it's important that you still read up and you make those connections. Okay, what do you think was the #1 movie at the box office in 1976?
I can tell you.
Let's go.
Jaws.
Jaws?
Yes, the original Jaws.
That is awesome. I was asking Heather Davis over at Central. She graduated class of 88, and she guessed Fatal Attraction. And that was for 87. But when I look back in the 70s and 80s, my goodness, what a time to be alive when it was movies.
Oh,
like Rocky 3 and the Fatal Attraction and then Rain Man, like 87. Like I was born in 88. And I'm looking back and I'm like, holy smokes. Oh, yeah. And some of the music I listen to now, like I do the 80s station on Sirius XM, and it's like, y'all were lucky.
Oh, yeah. The music of the 70s and 80s were just incredible.
Yeah. So thinking back to your time as a teacher, what was one of the most impactful moments? We had talked about state championships, national championships when it comes to journalism in our groups. But what is a moment you were like, I'm so proud to be a part of this? And I'm sure there's plenty of those, Miss T.
Goodness.
But if there's one that kind of stood out, and when you think back.
The reason I love to teach is because even though I don't have many living family members, my kids become my extended family. And I have so many stories in my mind of all the beautiful times we've had together. And I warn everybody that when I retire, I'm going to write a book called It's Darkest Before the Deadline. But one that just pops out in my mind is at OU for a state conference one year. I was very surprised to be named the outstanding advisor for the state of Oklahoma. And there were kids in the audience that were my students, and I can still hear them going, yeah, Miss T. And I just cried.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. Just that relationship, that love. That I've gone to many a wedding, many baby showers. I still keep in touch with lots of my former kids, and I'd love to hear from more of them.
Yeah.
But it's that family feeling that is just so incredible.
Yeah, and we feel that connection because you make that investment, and it's not just me. I'm selfish. I come and see Miss T probably once every couple of months, and I make sure the kids aren't treating you bad. But good thing. But it's really when you make that investment and you really think about how you're empowering others, and then your cup becomes full at the end of the day.
That's the truth.
But I will tell you that one of the greatest lessons that you taught me was patience and persistence, right? And life becomes a battle between patience and persistence. So, there might be a door you want to open. It might not open right at that moment. Be patient, but also be persistent. And that's where it comes from. We talk about deadlines. I talked about yearbook and the old IMAX. Like, yeah, there's patience and persistence. So, what do you think the #1 song was in 1976?
Ooh, let me think. Well, the bands were, everybody loved still Led Zeppelin, and Fleetwood Mac was coming up big and strong, and we it was a good old rock and roll. So not positive.
Yeah. Well, it's just like movies. What I was saying, there were so many hits and big bands, and we were, on that 76, we're on the edge of entering kind of the big hair era.
Oh, yeah.
I think of I think more 80s because my parents graduated in the 80s, so I think of Poison, the Ticks, and all that stuff. But it's good for people. I try to tell kids now, it's just sample. Don't just be a prisoner of the moment.
That's right.
Kind of look backwards. Well, Ms. T, it was great catching up with you, and I hope that we have more College High Wildcats come back for Bartlesville Homecoming Weekend. You truly are a treasure.
Oh, thank you, honey.
I love you, and there's so many more people out there that love you. And when you do retire, trust me, you'll have a crowd saying the same thing they had to you at OU.
Thank you, darling.
We look forward to seeing you at Bartlesville Homecoming Weekend. Thank you.